Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever time you're listening to this podcast. Welcome to another episode of Down in the Valley. My name is Edson and Ochoa, and we are back to talk finally after a couple of weeks of inactivity because of rain and losses and draws. We are going to be talking about a Toros victory. Yes, sirree. Can't wait to talk about everything that happened against Birmingham. Obviously, real quick, I want to give a huge shout out to Ray Silva, whose birthday today on September 20th is his birthday. So we want to give him a huge congratulations and wish him many more years of life. If you all know, Ray Silva is a good friend of the podcast. He was here in the last couple of weeks to cover for Jacob Young. And speaking of, we have the return of the prodigious son. And so everybody say hello and welcome back, Jacob Young, to the podcast. Jacob, how you doing?
I'm 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 doing all right. Finally back for been a long time. 1 week, um, had had COVID. I'm gonna be like that. Yeah, I had COVID. Another other weeks had stupid volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
I say stupid. It's just the tournaments. The tournaments are what kills you. The games won't kill you. So yeah, that was definitely um, something. It has definitely been a minute. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Glad to be back. Hopefully, I can make a return to HEB Park soon too. That might not be anytime soon though. This next Saturday, I will see how I feel after. If there is even a game on, I haven't even. I'm so out of the loop, man. I haven't even checked the schedule. I just go with the flow. I get the alerts on my email, and I'm like, okay, game, cool. Let's see if I can make it. Oh no, I can't make it. Oh well. Oh, I just finished up, a 10 hour or a 20-hour drive, basically. Oh, I do not feel good this Saturday. I cannot make it to the
Yeah.
game. Other things like that. Hopefully, like I said, I can make a return. That would be very, very nice to finally make a return to HEB Parks and see everybody. But yeah, we'll see.
Costless Titan says Jacob is back and Puma's still on the bench. Good
Woo!
times.
Oh,
No,
Pumas
but
fell.
no, but honestly, Jacob, there were a couple of comments. They were asking where you were in the last couple of weeks. But obviously, with work, you've been very swamped in this first semester of high school sports, with like you mentioned, volleyball, and soccer, football, and with
And
Rio
now
sports.
college sports, yeah.
Yeah, now college sports
Community
too.
college.
Yeah, so you got a lot on your plate, but hey, work comes first, and that's all that really matters, because obviously that's gonna bring food to the table. But
Indeed.
but yeah, guys, it's great to be back. Honestly, I want to give a huge shout out to Costas Titan, like I mentioned, Mike Reyes. He says, "What's up, guys?" And and Ray is on as well, saying hi from Facebook. Like I mentioned right now, happy birthday, Ray, to you. Here's too many more, man. I really appreciate everything you do for us at Down in the Valley. So um, everybody, give a huge happy birthday over to Ray. If you ever see him or right here in the chat, I'm sure he will appreciate all the good comments on there. He did a fantastic job covering for Jacob the last couple of episodes. you
Indeed.
know so we had some great chats. So he's someone that's always there, to step up to the plate whenever
Definitely.
whenever we need him. But yeah, so Jacob,
Hmm.
really, really interesting situation where the Toros are at right now.
Oh yeah.
We're still in 11th place. We have been very inconsistent when it comes to our results, and we're only missing 5 games left. We're only 5 games left
About
in the
yep.
2023 season. So, what are your thoughts on where the Toros are at right now?
Oh man. They are in one of the weirdest situations I think we've seen in a while because this team seems to love to be in the situation around now. Guess what? I fully believe I'm safe from the hot shot challenge. A little sad about that, but also a little happy at the same time. It's bittersweet because I kind of wanted to try that in the end.
Hmm.
I only said it if they'd make the playoffs and make it in seventh. I believe I said it, as long as it's not eighth or something like that. Um, but either way, yeah, it's just we're like we're below 500, having to literally be undefeated. If there's a draw, it's basically done. It's basically not
Hmm.
completely, but it's basically like 3 points from here on out is the only way that the Toros can really make it. Even though I'm looking at the points, 1 point away from New Mexico United, classic us versus them situation. 4 points away from El Paso, and then, well, 5 points away from Monterey Bay. It's not on the Toros' hands one bit. Where like now everybody needs to lose in front of them, and that's literally impossible because well, everybody has to play somebody. So
Hmm.
just in a situation where the Toros put themselves in the end, bad road results, bad home results when needed at the start of the season, and that's really what sent the Toros down the path of where they're at now. And it seems like it was going to be an up and up, and then the news. This is where it really happened, Edson. Oh, we talked about it. The news. Wilmer Cabrera Jr. gone again, and this time for most likely good. And that really hurt this team's depth. And without him, it was difficult to fill his shoes this late. Hopefully, the loanee that we have will be better, but very difficult now. It's just at the situation where undefeated or no playoffs for the first time for Wilmer Cabrera in his tenure at this club, considering, well, he was there in 2017, made the playoffs. There after the whole Dynamo situation, made the playoffs, and now it's looking like it's no.
So now I gotta ask you because you brought up Wilmer Cabrera Jr. Did you ever expect at the beginning of the season that we were ever going to miss him as much as we do right now?
I want to say I had more hope or more belief in Wilmer Jr. than you did ever, but I'm not entirely sure, Edson, because we all know your history with this man and also Wilmer Cabrera. Um, but of course, it's different now. But sort of no. I'll be honest, not as much as we're missing him now. I think for sure if we had lost him a little bit, but not as much because again, Wilmer Jr. seemed slow at the start of the season, but got into his rhythm
Hmm.
with, of course, scoring goals and then Francois scoring goals too at that same time. Kind of they were on the same pedestal of the situation of who's going to score a goal first, basically,
Yeah.
and who's going to get into that form in the end.
Yeah, so just a quick recap, preach the word. So from the beginning, Wilmer Cabrera Jr. was sent out on a loan here to Rio Grande Valley FC from Real Cartagena. Real Cartagena was the team that actually had the rights to him. They loaned him over to us, and then just recently, a couple of weeks ago, Real Cartagena or the Toros announced that Real Cartagena had recalled Wilmer Cabrera Jr. from RGV, and at the same time, they were transferring on a full transfer to a German fourth division club. Uh, and so we lose Wilmer Jr. Kind of really late in the season, and just about when Wilmer Jr. and the offense was starting to get on a groove. So I think when I want to say this was before the first San Antonio Derby, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe like right after. I'm not 100% sure. No, it was after the Phoenix game. I remember it was after the Phoenix game. So yeah, so that's what happened with Wilmer Jr. I know there's been a lot of speculation of what this means. Why a German fourth division club. I honestly can't say, and I mentioned it before. To me, it seems like Real Cartagena really undervalued the level of USL Championship.
Yep.
I really don't think that the USL Championship is comparable to the German fourth division. I know Shadow Wolf them himself, who we all know is from Germany, has said that German fourth division is almost half pro half amateur league, so this is pretty much a semi-pro division in Germany. So I feel like the fact that they felt that uh the move was warranted, recalling him from the USL Championship to move him to German fourth division for a team that had just got promoted to that fourth division too.
Yeah.
you know. So I really thought it was a really strange move by Real Cartagena. Obviously, it kind of hurt. It stings a little that because of that move, now we were kind of left, uh, figuratively with our pants down,
Yep.
and so now we're in a situation where now you bring in kind of Alex Moniz from Chicago Fire to try to find a replacement for Wilmer Cabrera Jr. with such a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other question that I had for you, I know we're kind of recapping since you've been gone, Jacob, but the fact of the matter is, RGV FC, we are close to the deadline to the roster freeze, right? Which I believe it's this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And the only movement that they've brought in that you can say was a mid-season acquisition. Has been bringing Alex Moniz, a player from Chicago Fire too. Do you think that this team really should go for try to find and sign another player, and if so, where do you think that they need more of the help?
I'd have to say, well, first off, I would say, of course, they need all the help that they can get, I think, everywhere. Besides behind goal. But even then, it's scary if Derek gets hurt, because I'm sorry, I just don't have a lot of faith in the backup quarterback or backup. That was the wrong word. Backup goalkeeper.
Mhm.
But I think he needs just a little bit more time and practice behind Derek. Of course, that's pretty normal for a young backup quarterback in just a league just to get more reps. But going back to it, I would say midfield play to me would most likely need to be better. Again, we have a 40-year-old basically out on the field that does not look good to be out there. That's Juan David Cabezas. I've said it before. I just don't think he's not at his prime for sure where he used to be. And I think he's probably gone after the season in general to hang him up, is my whole point. For sure, midfield. Potentially defense. And then, well, we've always said this, strikers. Why? Because we see it every single week on the stats. There's just not enough shots, at least on target. And if anything, they're constantly going into the bar area at home, or constantly going into the crowd that goes over the basically on into the table side. So yeah, it's probably the top reason we won.
Yeah, but to be fair, Mike. To be fair, Mike. Juan David Cabezas played as a center back. He played as a center back.
Maybe that's where he should be then. The whole
Because
season he was
I think
playing up
Jacob's
midfield.
complaint. I think Jacob's complaint that I've mentioned it in previous episodes before is that you can't have Juan David Cabezas playing as the sole center defensive midfielder.
Exactly.
He does not have the youth.
Mhm.
He does not have the speed to be able to take command of a whole the whole width of the pitch
Yeah.
to defend the midfield. You got to have somebody alongside him, whether it's Robert Coronado or maybe Taylor Davila or maybe Ringo Torres. Somebody that'll help him take command. As a single center defensive midfielder, he hasn't looked good. He's always been beaten, and I think
Mhm.
that's what the biggest complaint that Jacob had. Him being a center back. I mean, he's got the help of who did he have this week? Gabriel Benitez, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on. No, he had Frank Nodarse alongside him, so he has help. And with his experience, he can take command of the defensive line. Considering the fact that we don't have Ohabakwe and we don't have
Mhm.
Eric Pimentel on the defensive line either.
Mhm.
Yeah, so even Mike agrees. Yeah, he looks a lot better at CB.
Uh-huh. Yeah, he was in the wrong spot the whole freaking season. So maybe that's where he just needed to be the whole freaking time, and he wasn't in the right place instead of being a central defender. Because he has not looked that good at CDM. He has had a lot of he's had a lot of yellow cards stacked up against him too, because it's desperation last minute, and it's tough. But yeah, moving on, it's one of those situations where, yeah, we probably need more help at midfield, and then yeah, sliding that man over to center back all of a sudden would make this team a pretty decent end to the run. But then, how much do you want to spend at this last week, even if it's a couple of free transfers? Considering, well, just get ready for next year. When do you decide to do that? Is it when you're officially out of the playoffs run? Because yeah, we're still in this playoff run, but needing to basically be perfect is going to be very difficult. Like I said, a draw is almost going to put us out. Considering, like Michael said, like Mike Reyes said, there's a lot of games that will be happening here as we're recording this Wednesday night at around 9 p.m. So it's just one of those situations. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe some more core strikers, but again, yeah, I'd like to see better play from midfield, and if that's getting people in on midfield, then that's going to be what it is, because we still have, like you said, Frank out and Frank Nodarse, and or not Nodarse, sorry, Wahab still out,
Yeah,
and we
and
still
he's out for the
have
whole season.
exactly, and we still have Pimentel out, which has been very underwhelming this whole season, and I will stick with that. Even if a parent comes after me after that, just like we had what's his face at the start of the season, his mom or something, or somebody came after me and saying, "Yeah, you're wrong. He played pretty well the past season before." But point is, I have not been impressed with Pimentel throughout this whole entire season. So that's saying something, that man just hasn't been impressive, and draws fans to the stadium, but that's about all he does.
So just real quick, I know because I know Mike did mention about the important games that we need to be on the lookout for today, because that's going to show how difficult it is going to be, in the amount of points that we need to get for the rest of the season. And so we've got Monterey Bay, who's taking on San Diego Loyal. That is going to be a very tough match. But the thing is that Monterey Bay is right now the team that has the best
Mhm.
streak in the last 5 games. They've won 4 and drawn 1, and that draw was a 0-0 against San Antonio FC. You know, so and then they end up defeating Colorado. They defeated El Paso, defeated Memphis, and then
Mhm.
defeated Las Vegas. Right, so they're on a hot streak, right?
Yep, and Orange County as well. I'd say Orange County is even on a better streak than they are, because the last time that I checked this, which was a while back,
Well, they
they
lost
were
against
behind us.
Colorado.
Okay, that's ending their streak, but still, I mean, to
Yeah, I
put them
mean,
up
yeah, but I mean
into
the last
third
five.
place,
Yeah,
yeah,
but I mean,
last
I'm
5.
talking about the last 5, right? But
Right.
yes, Orange County by far. I don't know, and it all started with after they beat us at their home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Mhm.
So okay, so that was so then not only do we have Monterey Bay versus San Diego Loyal, we have to look at as well for Sacramento Republic versus New Mexico United. That will also be at 9 p.m. today. Um, Currently New Mexico United is 36 points ahead of 36 points, 1 point ahead of us. So these two games to me it seems on that in paper they might bear favorable results for the Toros to keep those teams within their grasp. Uh, we all have like Monterey Bay, El Paso, New Mexico, and RGV. We all have 29 games played. So it is going to be put ourselves in a favorable situation if both of these teams lose to keep it within the realm of possibility. Another game that we have to be looked at for actually not today and but until the weekend is going to be let me see, El Paso versus Phoenix at 9:30. Um Oakland versus Monterey Bay. Oakland
Mhm.
versus Monterey Bay, which would be at 9 p.m. Uh, those are going to be matches that we're going to be on the lookout for because, especially with Oakland is on the opposite end of the spectrum as Monterey Bay. They have won one and lost four in their last 5 games. You know, so
Yep.
at the end of the point is going to be moot if the Toros don't get 3 points from here on out. Once we get closer to the end of the season, we will run our little calculator to see how many points we need these other teams at the top to lose for us to have an opportunity to make it into the playoffs. But we've really, to be honest, we really dug ourselves really,
Mhm.
really deep in the Western Conference. The only reason we're not last is because Las Vegas Lights, was just
Basically
an
called it quits.
embarrassment.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just an embarrassment to in the Western Conference this season. If this was
Mhm.
NASCAR, I'm pretty sure the USO would have already taken away their franchise.
It's basically just start and park for them, is what I'd say. But
Basically, honestly,
uh-huh.
basically the way they
Yeah.
ran it, it's basically a start and park team.
Exactly. Which, yeah, that's I believe is a no-no anymore in NASCAR. But either way, it is true of how much this team kind of regressed. And what I'd say here is, which is interesting, I'll bring up Aggie football for a minute, is Texas A&M last year. What kind of happened? They were terrible, terrible, awful, god awful. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong for this team. Had a bad quarterback to begin with. That was a 5-star out of high school and all of this. But we only had a head coach. This team did not have a um, offensive coordinator calling their plays. What am I getting at here? Wilmer Cabrera has two roles on this team. He's not only the head coach, he also is, I forget the title, but he's got something
Sporting
else.
director.
There you
Mhm.
go, sporting director. The way that things have been shaping up, I really want him to just focus on being a coach and get ourselves our own. I know that this would be kind of expensive. Get ourselves our own sporting director. I think things would be much, much easier. RGV FC, if you ever listen to this podcast or anything, if y'all can scrape up some money for exactly that, that would be perfect. Because in my opinion, he'd just be less stressed. He'd work more on building a team, and he'd focus more on basically team things than having a business side or trying
Okay,
to
but
get
do you really
players.
do you really think
That
that this
this is all
situation?
on. No.
No, I mean, we've mentioned it before. This is clearly on the lack of funding from RGV's ownership
Yeah.
into bringing
But let another
players.
person deal with that than him, is my point. He'd be less stressed and focus more on being a coach. And I think
But
there would
you
be
also
more
you
involvement
do
in
have to
practice.
remember though that the reason he's got both of these titles is because of his salary.
That's why I mean, I don't know how much longer he has left on his contract, Edson. But if he
I
doesn't make
don't
the
either.
playoffs, I think there could be a possibility. And again, I'm just speaking out of everything alleged because I don't know. Hypotheticals. There we go. That's much better. Even hypotheticals. Let's say if every single year after he makes the playoffs, he gets um, an extension on his contract and accepts it, or something like that. Let's say his original contract was only for 4 years. Seems like he's been here a little bit longer, or maybe this has been his last year. I don't know. My point is, all of a sudden, they can redo his contract and take off that if this is his final year, if they want him back and he misses a playoff. Because I, for one, I mean, there's a thing. If you miss the playoffs, all of a sudden, including where 8 teams get in, then your seat's going to be pretty freaking hot in the end. And people are going to want results quickly in the next season. And all of a sudden, yeah, if the team looks at it, they could most likely cut some money off of his contract if he needs to be renewed. And all of a sudden, he's just left with one job. They hire somebody else with the extra uh, funds. Of course, like you say, we probably need a little bit more influx of cash for extra players. But again, that's for somebody else to worry about hopefully soon. Because I just want him to himself to focus on one job, and that's to be a coach and not to be a businessman. That's it.
Okay. I see where you're getting at. It's just a matter. Um,
5-year contract, apparently, according to Michael. I don't
apparently,
know.
I'm not 100% sure. I think it was a 5-year contract, if I recall
Allegedly.
correctly, correctly from the Ron Patel years when he was announced. Because I know he would always talk. Wilmer would even always talk about a 5-year plan kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I would assume that it was a 5-year contract. But with going back, it's just a matter of, okay, how do you, if you get rid of one of those jobs, how do you justify the high salary if that is the reason.
Mhm.
So he would have to take a pay cut. Who would be willing to come to the Rio Grande Valley to be the sporting director as well? You
Yeah.
know, so I honestly feel that the RGV FC job really isn't that enticing for major members of the USL Championship, mostly because a lot of
Yeah. It's
it
here.
is. And honestly, like, we don't have the reputation of being an elite USL Championship team,
Yep.
so that was going to force RGV. If you want to entice some of these good sporting directors, you have to pay even more money, to try to entice them to living here in the Rio Grande Valley and taking over the job. But
Yeah.
I guess at this point is it's gonna have to be an evaluation that front office is gonna have to take in the maybe not the end of this season, but maybe next season, um, because
Mhm.
I feel like it might be a little bit too drastic
Oh,
for
yeah.
me to for say, oh, one season that we don't make it to the playoffs, considering all the circumstances, considering how cheap the roster was, uh for to say that, oh, you're gonna have to be sacked, because let's be honest, from the year that he came in after we gained our independence to now, the roster season
It's
after
shrunk.
season
Yeah.
has
Mhm.
shrunk and gotten
Gotten
cheaper.
cheaper. Mhm.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're wanting for Wilmer Cabrera to do miracles, with that. And you can only stretch your roster as so thin.
It's very, very true. Yeah. I just feel like the players that we had definitely could have done better. And I feel like some of the stuff that he Wilmer his decisions this season that he made could have been better. Again, in game time situations that we ended up. Uh, I mean, let's think about it this way. New Mexico United are ahead of us by 1 point.
Hmm.
Think about where that 1 point came from. just for a second.
Losing to Las Vegas for starters.
That's a good one, but I was thinking more of, I don't know, RGV FC at home winning 2-0, and all of a sudden 2-2 final in the last 5 minutes of the match,
Yes, yes, yes.
blowing 2 points. All of a sudden, that instead of us being 2 points away from El Paso, we are 4 points away.
And didn't you
Which
mention that at that moment? You said, or either one of us said something
I'm
like
pretty
that,
sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was you.
where we were going to be lamenting those lost points.
Yeah, I'm
Costas
sure.
Titan
Yeah.
says the Cinco de Mayo bottle job.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
But no, you're right.
Yeah. Mhm.
You're right,
It's
because
just yeah.
that would have put us, that would have put New Mexico at 30, at 35, and we would be at 37. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'd be 2 points ahead of them.
Mm-hmm. 2 points ahead of them. 2 points back of El Paso. A little bit closer. And I mean, that's just one of a couple of matches where, again, it was just a slow start to this team that didn't get equated yet. And the frustrations at the start of the season will probably make us miss the playoffs. We can come back to this clip however much we want to if we make it, but that is a very long stretch when there's 5 games left and everything is out of our hands. But it's happened before. If we go 5-0 and still miss the playoffs, okay, that's fine. Where was that fight at the start of the season? Is all I can say there. But yeah, it's just interesting, to say the least.
So let's go ahead and focus 100% on the game against Birmingham Legion, the game that happened last Sunday. I don't know, what were your thoughts going into the game.
What's the weather going to be like? That was the biggest thought for me, really. I mean, I had texted it in group chat, but it was very true because I had seen the night before. It's funny. The night before, I'd seen lightning strikes in the air. And
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, coming into that next day, I'd seen a little bit of rain in the forecast too. So it was going to be interesting to see if that game would end up actually happening. And yes, it did rain where I was. Of course, it was lightning delay to start that matchup. So it was a miniature Tulsa. But yeah, it was good play. After that break, it seemed like RGVFC weren't going to do too well because it seems like with those delays, they just come out and are kind of lackluster at the start of matches. I've noticed because we've had a couple of those types of games before. But this team early on, we already have seen a highlight of them having a chance in on goal very early on. And so just little things like that. But to be fair, in the 20th minute, RGFC kind of getting lucky with just being an outside foul. So it was pretty interesting.
No, I think you were saying right now about the delay. I honestly feel that the good thing from this was, by the way, what a save by Ricky Reese right there. But what I was gonna say was that the good thing out of this is that the delay happened before the players even warmed up. So the players hadn't even gone up to gone out to warm up when the lightning delay happened, and thankfully it was just a small little cell that, don't get me wrong, it was strong enough just by itself, but it just managed to miss HEB Park. There was a lot of wind. If you guys saw my Instagram, like right between the, up on top of the
Mhm.
home side where all the cameras are at, the wind was blowing super hard, but that was the good thing. So it allowed, even with the delayed start of the game, it allowed the players to warm up as normal. So basically, it was just a later kickoff time. It wasn't like it usually would be, where they'd start playing
Yeah.
and then there's a delay, and they cooled down a lot. It lost all of their momentum. That's where it affects RGV a whole lot more. But I think for me, I wasn't feeling very confident about this game, to be honest. I really
Yeah.
thought that that Birmingham was going to be a whole lot better than what they actually showed. Because going into the match, Birmingham did have a couple of wins, but I know they weren't doing that great. They lost. They beat New Mexico 1-0. They lost 3-0 to Birmingham, to San Diego, lost to Detroit. They defeated Tulsa 3-1, and they even defeated Louisville City. So even though they did have a couple of losses, some of the teams that they did beat were, really good players. Costa says, "I'm glad we didn't let Swagudello score on us." Yeah, he was close. He was close,
Yep.
and this is the play that, right here. Uh, so I'll take a look. I think it's interesting because you've got 6 players in a V formation inside the box, and then Ricky's by himself. Oh no, this is another one. Oh, this is the play before when they're like, "What the hell?" Like that wasn't even a corner kick, and in this ensuing corner kick, that's when Ricky saves it off of the line. I honestly was just so surprised uh, how Ricky was just managed to be there, because I really did feel that could have been a yeah. See, there it is.
Yeah.
Tyler Derrick had already, there was no way Tyler was going to react to be able to get that ball off of the back of the net.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the instances where it should have been 1-0 Birmingham and completely changing the game. A phenomenal defense from RGV FC, which again we've seen sometimes this season, but not a lot. So yeah, it was good from RGV FC to be able to show up defensively too. And sometimes when this team shows up defensively, we've seen it. They don't show up offensively though. But it's just one of those situations.
Yeah, and I think another thing was that this game got a little bit chippy, especially in the first half. There was a lot of fouling, there was a lot of yellow cards and all of that, and you know they were still able to keep their concentration despite Birmingham, committing a lot of fouls
Yeah.
against the Toros. Then you had the situation where early in the match, you had a Ricky Reese have to leave off of with an injury, and so you had to bring Robert Coronado into the game after a couple of weeks of not even being present, sometimes even on the bench. So Preach the Word says our guys were on the floor a lot during the first half. I mean, really, Birmingham, they were committing a lot of fouls against RGV.
Mm-hmm. And even if you have to sell it a couple of times, hey, guess what? It worked. The refs were calling it. When the refs are calling it, that's a perfect time to actually fall to the ground when you need to. So, yeah, it's just, and still a spectacular goal. I've seen it a couple of times, but just Lopez being able to keep his balance in that whole situation. That's
Mhm.
and playing it back again. It's just, I mean, that's what you are supposed to do as a striker, or just as supposed to do when you have possession. Not only from Lopez scoring that goal, but the start of where they took the shot was that's just you get a rebound and put it in the back of the net, hopefully.
So one of the things I remember that play because I had actually left the press room, and I had gone downstairs to the ground level to go watch the game. And as I was watching this play unfold, one of the things that I had made an observation was that RGV so far in that game had and I'll confirm with the USL Championship chalkboard. But to me, it felt that RGV was kind of lacking in attempting shots from outside the box. And so in the first half, when it from RGV, I'm going to turn off Birmingham first. Yeah. So they actually had a couple of shots, but most of them, they had 3 shots from outside the box, and most of them they really didn't have a lot of power. They didn't have a lot of accuracy. Like, and we saw both of them. one of them from Frank Lopez, the other one from Ian Cerro. Then you had 2 blocked shots from Taylor Davila. But I really felt like, man, like RGV really needs to try those long shots more, especially because they were like in the beginning of the second half, like it really did feel that Birmingham was allowing them to take possession of the ball from outside the box, but instead of trying to find a shot, they were trying to find, trying to find the pass, right? And there were many times, like I said, where they were given space to kind of take the shot, but they kind of weren't feeling very confident about it. And so I remember in that play when Robert received the ball right outside the box, I was like, "Shoot it, Robert! Shoot it, Robert! Shoot it! Shoot it!" And so he shoots it. He shoots that ball, and obviously, as you guys can see, as you guys saw, there really wasn't a lot of. It really didn't have a lot of power to it, but all of the rebounds that happened inside the box, and obviously, I want to say that there was also a bit of a fortune involved, because I want to say that the ball was deflected in off of the defender, and I want to confirm it right here.
Yeah, it's
Right,
gonna
so
go
it
to
bounces off of Ian Cerro, and it looks like
more like an own goal. It's true. It does.
Because it really looks like Frank wants to shoot it towards the far post, and it just gets deflected by the defender into the near post. That's why Van Okel also wasn't able to react to it. And obviously, you got to the Tours. You can see right there the number 3 is the one that deflects it. But honestly, you have to find that luck yourself, like in order to put yourself in a very favorable situation to try to find those goals. So JVO says this is very interesting. He says, with all honesty, when will Wilmer get fired? Team is worse this year than last year. Let's get serious. Okay.
Oh man, we talked about that. It's fun. I'll take it, Edson. Here,
Yeah.
JVO. We talked about it a bit, and it's because if you haven't noticed, in the years prior, look at the player value from every single player that was on this team and ended up having to leave. That includes when we had the man, the myth, the legend from Sac Republic, Roro. He's amazing. He was on this team, and he's a bit pricey for the USL. He's back in California with that same team. He was expensive. He left. This club doesn't have a lot of money in their back pocket, at least invested into it by an owner or whoever. So that's the reason why. So Wilmer has to work with what he has right now, and he's trying to get players as best as possible. That's why we have a man from Colorado, from Chicago Fire too, that is on a loan. Loans are pretty cheap in the end, unless you end up buying the player. So that's the reason why. And then there's players who have gotten injured that were pretty pricey too, like Puma Pimentel. I'm sure was not too cheap. He's not playing right now and has been a little bit of a disappointment, at least this season, to my eyes. But other people can disagree with me. But he's been out a lot of games. Is my point too. Then there's other players too that, like Wahab Akwe, he's out for the whole entire season. Wilmer has to find a backup here. Edson and I had said it off the start of the season too, that this team doesn't have a lot of depth. So with that being said, you drag in somebody from the bench, they have to fill in a pretty big shoe, and all of a sudden they're playing with players that they normally don't play with because they play with the second team players. So you have to get acquainted with your first team players, and all of a sudden the chemistry is messed up too. So there's a lot more that goes on into it. And the reason why also Wilmer Cabrera, if he doesn't make the playoffs for the first season that he's ever coached with RGV FC Toros, he gets fired. That would be the dumbest mistake that RGV FC could make. And if that does happen, I will riot. There is, and loot that store. There is, well, this is all just alleged. I'm not going to actually do
violence. We don't.
I'm not going to do that. But my point is that would just be dumb, and I would say something on this podcast like, why would we do that?
JVO, give me your evidence. Give me your reasons why Wilmer needs to get fired. And don't just give me, oh, because the team sucks. No, give me valid reasons why
Dependent on
Wilmer
the owners.
specifically deserves to be fired.
I think this is most also, and then there's another one. Code Awesome saying, asking that question: does the use have use? I guess he meant the USL have a similar distribution of funds, similar to MLS, or is it mostly dependent on the owners? I guess if
No,
you
it's
win it,
dependent on the owners. It's dependent.
exactly, yeah, unless you win a championship, but even then, I don't think you get that much money.
Yeah, because in USL there is no GAM, there is no TAM, there is none of that. This is all how deep your owners' pockets are.
Yeah,
So you are not subsidized by the league in order to get in your players. I mean, let's be honest, guys. Like the just the fact that we like since last year we started bringing in for starters. We started bringing in players from USL, League One. This year we had to bring in from Nisa, if I'm not mistaken. In the case of Ian Cerro,
yeah,
he had to bring. I'll continue to bring in from USL
and college
League
too.
One and college as well.
Mhm.
So every year we're starting to go into that kind of mentality of instead of getting players that are standouts in the USL Championship, in the case of Rodrigo Lopez, in the case of Vicente Sanchez, a historic player in Mexican soccer, obviously former Houston Dynamo, Juan David Cabezas with a international experience with MLS experience under the Houston Dynamo. Eric Pimentel, you bringing in Tyler Derrick. You managed to retain Cabezas, Pimentel, and Tyler Derrick, but
Yep,
everybody else, a lot of these big players, they end up leaving. You
it's
know,
true.
and so now who you bring in the replacement? You bring in Ian Cerro, you bring in Jonathan Ricketts, you bring in Ricky Reese, from the lower divisions. All of that is gonna take a toll because uh, you really have less talent in theory that compared to previous years. Now you really have to rely on the coaching to try to bring out the best of these players, and it's kind of like a low risk high, well, in theory it should be low risk high reward. Why I say this? Because if you want to handle yourself like that of buying cheap, well, then your hope is, okay, if I buy cheap, I want to give them time, like give them the confidence to, okay, uh I want them to develop, and then let's say like in
Mhm.
2 years, they get up to a certain level where I can sell them to another team like Louisville City or San Antonio FC, or all of these teams like that I'm going to get money out of developing this player, giving him an opportunity from the lower leagues, moving him up to the USL, and then selling him. And that is, income for your team that you can reinvest into bringing these players.
Yep,
Obviously, more often than not, when a team decides to go for that approach, it's rare when they're going to be a championship fighting team, but at least it makes sense on the business side. And we're not seeing that from RGV. That is my biggest gripe, and it's mostly front office in that aspect. It could be that Wilmer Cabrera, sporting director, has a little bit of say in that too. Obviously, there's obviously a criticism, but it really, from what I see, JVO just comes in and says, "Oh, when will Wilmer get fired?" We're asking him for evidence, and he's radio silent. I mean, if you're just gonna come in, you're just gonna come in
uh-huh.
and make comments like that and bash, you
Oh,
better.
there we
Oh,
go.
there we
He's
go.
saying that.
Well, I guess I invoked it. So he says, because it is clear that this team will not get better with Wilmer, why not try something else? It's been long enough to clearly see that Wilmer is not the coach for this team. We need higher expectations.
Dude, oh my gosh. No, it's funny because this. What? Why not try something else? Again, this man has made the playoffs every single year he has coached for the RGV FC Toros. He misses a year with going to the playoffs. What? We're just gonna fire this guy? He's not Ed Odron. He was not bad. He's not doing that bad this season. Again, he made some mistakes, sure. Like we said, a little bit of gripes in the end. But this team is not him. This team is not. Like, oh, what? But you're gonna have these fans that think that this player should randomly get fired. There's some great examples. Well, let me. This is actually a perfect time, and this fits all really well with this. Okay, so I'm a New York Jets fan. Yes, this is going to come out, Michael. You can say whatever you want, but this is just basically an example, and I'm trying to get clear. Uh, our biggest player, he higher expect. Okay, JVO. I'm gonna actually stop with my example. Higher expectations, but yeah, with a team that's worse than last year's, and that was worse than the year before that too. Are you really wanting higher expectations from a team that's not as at the level that they were a year or two ago? No, that's not how it works. It looked like this team was going to be great. Then you have to exchange your expectations when players get injured, when players aren't brought back to you in time, when players were hurt at the start of the season and it looked like all hope was lost because of that. Then you have to really just change your expectations. Higher expectations, sure, that's not the coach's fault when stuff isn't as planned, even though you're getting players, supposed to be getting players at a certain time that you can't get. Yeah, that makes complete sense. No, it does not. You with those with what expectations? With what expectations? Again, this team was worse than last year's, and that team was worse than the year before that. Therefore, those expectations are going lower and lower because they're younger players. And the players that we have are older and most likely past their freaking prime. It's stupid. You got deeper pockets? We'd love some more money too. It's so good Lord. This guy is just
See, this is the thing that irks me. This is the thing that irks me about the way he's making it seem. He's making it seem like we're just, being, it's almost pasalones, that we don't really care, that we're just like, clapping like little seals or something like that, everything the FO does. And I think our track record shows that we are far from that. Uh, you want higher expectations? I think we've been saying it for many seasons. We want higher expectations from the roster that is being built, the time that roster is being
yeah.
built. From that foundation, when you see year after year that a high turnover rate, uh, the acquisition of players from the lower leagues, taking a gamble of that, all of those expectations, they haven't met. And we've been vocal about it before, so don't just come and say like, oh, we don't have or we don't have high expectations for this team. I think we've been very vocal about the fact that we want to be able to compete with San Antonio. We want to be able to compete for a champion, for
he's
a
not.
championship.
Yeah. He's not JVO. He has say, but like again, you have to have money to hire players.
JVO, let me put you this example. Okay. You want to buy a freaking Lamborghini. That's your dream car. That is the car that you want to have. You like it, the power, you like the design, yada yada yada. But you only have a job that earns you $70K and you can only afford a Hyundai Elantra. How are you going to get the money to buy a freaking Lamborghini? That's the problem here. The problem is that ownership isn't giving Wilmer enough budget to bring in the big players, to bring in the Forrest Lassos, to bring in the Solomon Asantes that'll help you build a championship team. That's the problem. Wilmer has to go by whatever the ownership's budget tells him to.
Oh my goodness, this is you're digging yourself in a bigger hole. You don't need a superstar to win. Well, first off, you said a superstar to win the championship. Okay. Not one player makes a team. He's got us there. Not one player makes the team amazing. Not one player makes the team terrible either. But you still need a really good player to help other players out. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You need players to help your team out and get better. It's true. This team is only and will almost always be on paper with the best head coach in the freaking world, only barely making the playoffs, if anything. Yeah, and again, if Wilmer misses the playoffs with this team, that's 1 year out of his whole entire tenure. And he's been here for a while, and this is a 5-year freaking contract. If he misses the playoffs in the year after that, yes, there's concern. But if he barely misses the freaking playoffs for his first ever year, get out of here. Get out of here. This is moronic for you to say he needs to be fired because there's
No,
no.
no, no, no,
It is
no, no,
Edson.
no. Let's not be offensive.
He does not. Wilmer does not need to be fired. If he his seat will be very hot the next year. But
So
that's it.
Costless says, I guess he's saying Wilmer could be better at recruiting and development, but I don't think the owner will pay for better people. That's the problem.
Yep. None taken. Is there a cap on foreign players? I don't think the Valley minds if most of the team is Mexican instead of American. Yeah, that's true.
I've seen
But there
comments like that on
is.
Facebook, like say like,
Yeah.
why is it that we don't have, they make comments of saying like, why do we have like Americans on this team, which I don't I don't agree with wording it like that, but I do feel like this team could definitely you can get some
So, yeah.
players from Liga de Ascenso or bottom of the table. I mean, obviously that's my wish.
But
Get bottom of the table Liga MX players, and some of that to kind of like um
I'd like height on this team, honestly, because corner kicks have set piece opportunities this season have been poor. But that goes back to what are the height of players, who are they playing against, and it is other things like that. Sometimes that pieces on defense, RGV FC have not been able to get out of the box because of like Rodrigo Lopez again being right there and just taller and sometimes more athletic than the players inside the box for RGV FC, where they're not able to defend. So yes, I'd like a little bit more height on this team for sure. That would be a wish, even if that player is cheap, and there are some good players, like you said. That is a thing that can definitely help this team out, is getting height.
I think it's all going to go back to the fact that our expectations are we want this ownership to invest more money in this team, put in more money, so that way you can get better players from within the USL Championship that'll help us build a championship winning team. That's where it starts all there. Because let's be honest, somebody brought up Pep Guardiola. Do you really think Pep Guardiola, without the millions that Manchester City invested on that team, do you really think that he would have? And how long did he take him to win the freaking Champions League? After how many years of trying? Does that make him a shitty coach then?
Yeah, exactly.
This is why talented players leave. There are no championship expectations here. Very sad, honestly. No, it's not because of that. It's because other teams pay them more.
They can't get paid. They are worth a lot more than RGVFC can afford. And I'm saying quote unquote because I'm sure that we can't afford them. Looking over literally, what is it, 3 miles that way to Lopezville, a little bit further from Freddie Gonzalez. You look at the talented players. Of course, this is a completely different league, and this could be part of it. I'm not saying that this is what it is, but this is just my thought. That the owner, of course, he owns two things. He owns the RGV Vipers and he owns the RGV FC Toros. He could think that getting players or not having to pay a lot for players because this is a certain league, all of a sudden they can develop and grow, and then they can play really, really, really well right off the get-go. That's a possibility that he thinks. And of course, to everybody's credit, that's not how it goes. You get college players right off the bat. It's a completely different game than the USL is. And I've seen it myself in the way that it's been played, and I've seen it myself from NPSL too. So it's just, it's a whole thing that there's just differences in the way that the game is played, and that might be what the owner thinks. Again, I'm most likely completely wrong on this, but it's just, yes, we'd like more money into this club to get better players, but that could potentially be not necessarily a long-term thing. It's a whole thing. We'll just see how it goes. Yes, we'd love to see a sellout. Guess what? Marketing and JVO saying sad for the fans. Marketing has done a phenomenal job this season, just like last year.
I mean, they've improved, but they're not. They are not the best marketing team in the USL Championship. By far, that is Oakland Roots.
Yeah, by far, it's true. And Oakland Roots will literally be playing in a parking lot next season if it's built in time. Congratulations to them. Right outside of a rotting stadium. If y'all have not heard, they just got approved today of a brand new stadium for 10,000 seat stadium right outside of the rotting Oakland A's baseball field. So the old baseball field before Oakland moves to, of course, Las Vegas, where the lights shine brighter than, well, California sometimes. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
So Code Awesome says, is the owner connected to the American football team that's coming to HB Park? No, the football team is from UTRGV.
It's UTRGV's own business. From
what I assume is they're going to be leasing the stadium for the Vaqueros football team to play there.
Yep, not looking forward to that though.
Yeah, they're going to be paying rent to Alonso Cantu in order to play at HB Park. That is not Alonso's team. That's not a professional team, not a semi-pro team. It's going to be collegiate football.
Football under the NCAA and the WAC conference, to be exact, which the conference, yes, is WAC. I can say it as much times as I want to because it actually stands for Western Athletic Conference, but that conference is still WAC. Either way, not looking forward to that, but unless they sign or unless they hire some insanely good groundskeepers to keep that ground really, really nice still, then that'll be good. But it's close. So football season, as we all know, starts for college Labor Day weekend and ends past November.
As of this moment, yes, Alonso Cantu owns HB Park.
As of this moment, yeah. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully he keeps ownership of that and we don't have to go into a Wrexham situation where all of a sudden the city owns it, and that's a whole other mess.
Can of worms.
Yeah, can of worms, politics and all that. So
wow, this derailed so quickly.
It really did because of that one person, but I mean it was fair.
I mean, it's fair. It brought up some discussion, but I feel like blaming this solely on Wilmer is barking up the wrong tree. I really do think ownership has a bigger fault in the situation of where we're at right now. It's ownership is investing less,
I'll just yank the chair and not give it back. Do you think that Wilmer feels any pressure from the fans or the media? He can feel some pressure from the media for sure, yes. But you're right. In this scenario, JVO, you're right that he's not going to feel a ton of pressure from the media and fans for sure. But this is interesting, and it was actually for media, but it was brought up real quick, Edson, that this is one of the most covered teams in USL soccer.
No.
It is.
No, it's not.
Not from national media standpoint, but from local media standpoint, yes, it is. Edson.
There is no way.
We have the monitor at the games
No, we
90% of the
don't.
times. Yes, we do.
Who is
Yeah,
it?
Edward.
Because
He's
it's
there.
always me. It's always Ray.
He doesn't
Most of the
normally.
time,
He
most of
doesn't
the
nor.
time
Yeah.
it's Channel 5,
Hmm.
sometimes Telemundo,
Half the time,
and
yes.
and Noticias RGV. Outside of and we've talked about it before, Jacob. The traditional media, the traditional TV, they don't get past, oh, today the Toros won 1-0. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And that's the end of the discussion. There
Oh
is
yeah.
no in-depth discussion
No, there's no in-depth discussion.
like we
No.
do have right now.
Okay. Yeah. But
So
besides a podcast outside, it is true. And RGV FC have also wanted another. Well, they've just wanted their own in-depth podcast too. But that's besides the point. If I do believe so, but it's just yeah. But for the most part, I mean, we besides us, actually, we do have another podcast outside of ours covering this team. If you didn't know that, I
the El Gringo
I'm not gonna
podcast.
I'm not gonna do a shameless plug or anything but like that, but it's true. Freaking Shadow Wolf coming over, staying up at 3 a.m. covering this freaking team too. There are a lot of media that do cover this team in general. Besides, of course, news sources giving the updates of scores, which is fine, and showing the highlights. But they are there. We have had talks with them. Yes, Channel 4, we don't get to see them as much because their whole thing is kind of more complicated because they're also affiliated with Channel 23 and all that good stuff. Wouldn't that make a difference sometimes? Yeah, a little bit, JVO, but yes, actually, it brings up a good point. I think the pressure from the media or pressure from the fans as well would be more. Yes, we want them to talk more like this. We want to have more conversations like this. It is true. For just fans getting more involved with this team, 1,000%. He actually brings up a good point for this. I think yes, the media would kind of change this whole scenario. I think we'd have more money, potentially, if there was more pressure instead of this potentially, allegedly being just a tax write off for this team. And that's just, of course, my opinion that I think that this is and why this club can grow a lot more than where it's at. It's so true in the long run. I think you're muted.
I will tell you this, JVO. In 2021, thank you, Jacob. Um, Before the playoff match between RGV and Phoenix Rising, I do remember that Warmer Cabrera made a comment when I'm trying to remember if it was Devin Kerr. It was one of the national USL reporters that asked him what he thought about what Rick Chance had mentioned about RGV in his videos and stuff like that. And Wilmer Cabrera did mention that he is not somebody that really cares about what they say about him on social media, what they say about him in the media itself, or anything like that, or any other coaches for that matter. So, could you say that he kind of shields himself from the criticism? Yeah, I do think that is a valid point. Based on that comment, based on his obviously as well as his history when he was with the Houston Dynamo, which I covered as well when I lived in Houston, so I kind of have an idea, and Josh does too. The Yogi Bear Gaming also, he was he was my friend who brought me into the Peel podcast, and they had been covering the Houston Dynamo. Obviously, before I came in on board to take care of the Down in the Valley segment for them, so they already knew, how Wilmer handles situations. I know it was, if I recall correctly, like he was always very pushy about the fact that he only wanted the media at training. I think the first 15 minutes, and then after that, it was like they had to leave. So he cut and I know he was worse before. I'm telling you because I got a brunt of that. I got a little bit of that reaction from Warmer as well, where he was very quick to be very defensive about how the media portrayed his decision making or things like that. He's gotten a little bit better about the situation, but yeah, I do think you have a point that maybe it could be that with the lack of true pressure from fans and from media, and the fact that even of the little one that there is, he really doesn't pay attention to it. He just focuses on what he does for himself. I mean, maybe you could say that there might be something to it, but I keep on going back. The biggest issue here is funding that Wilmer Cabrera can use to be able to build himself a decent championship competing roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a whole bunch of stuff, and it's so true. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
So Code Awesome says, you can't let fans dictate how a team should be run.
Yes and no. I get it completely, but the fans should dictate a little bit of it.
I wouldn't say dictate, but I at least give feedback. Of where
that's what it is,
whether they agree or disagree with the direction. Mm-hmm. That I do agree, but I do feel like for fans to have a direct input of decision making, it's really hard. I think it's really hard to be able to pull it off. Because I think even like in the Bundesliga, where I think 50% of the ownership has to be the fans. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Like I think at the end, the decisions are made within the board of directors of the teams, with obviously some feedback from the fans. I don't know exactly how it works, so don't quote me on that. But there are those examples right there. Yeah. Obviously we can come on here on this podcast and say, we don't like where this is going, or we like where this is going, and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's up to front office and coaches to, okay, do we want to listen to that feedback, or do we just continue on because we believe that this is the plan that needs to go. But at the end of the day, the results the results are going to speak for themselves. We just have to be out here to analyze what the situation is and tell you guys, okay,
80-20 fans.
On our point of view, the biggest culprit is this kind of thing. There's a little bit on coaching, there's a little bit on players, but the biggest fault is FO, obviously, in our point of view. You guys might think something different, and that's the beauty of this. But you got to have evidence. You got to back up. You got to back up your arguments. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, 21's team was so much fun to watch too. That's the thing, Edson, and you can definitely agree with me. I mean, who the heck comes back from what was it, 2 down, and gets into penalties and beats a team that was like undefeated for a while, basically meaning they had won like almost 2 straight championships in the USL. Who really does that in the end? One of the most fun things waking up to seeing, oh my gosh, they beat them in penalties, because I was away on a road trip to watch a college football game with my father, or maybe it was to F1. I forget. Either way, absolutely crazy times. And yes, I'd like a team like that in a sense of just maybe bringing them back, and that wasn't even that expensive of a team too. Hopefully that would be cool.
Side note, Dynamo winning 3-0 right now, currently looking at 3rd place in the West. Here's okay. All right, okay, but this is why I'm bringing this up, Jacob.
I'll be right back.
Okay,
yeah, I'm here, and don't worry.
Okay, this is why I'm bringing up this whole Dynamo thing. How many times, and Jacob or Josh can correct me if I'm wrong, how many times, Josh, on the Peel, we criticize Gabriel Brenner for the lack of care, the lack of funding of the Houston Dynamo? And where did he have us right now? And Wilmer took this team to the Open Cup championship, to the semifinals of the MLS Cup. That it went on a decline after that. Yes, I will agree with you in that. But how many times did we say ownership needs to put in more money into the Houston Dynamo? Oh, great. Here we go. You
We
just
play in
had.
18 minutes.
Wait, hey, Josh, how many goals did we score on Portland last time?
Oh yeah, it was like 5. It was like 5. Yes.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Hey, we
The
didn't
point.
we had our old coach. We
Okay.
fired him, and now we're winning.
Okay. So the point I'm trying to make is the Houston Dynamo were totally shitty. Forgive the word, but they were
That's
completely shitty under the end of Wilmer, Tab Ramos, Pablo Nagamura.
100% true.
So
This
what
was still
happens?
technically a fan of them.
So what happens? Gabriel Brenner steps down, sells his stakes, and you bring in Ted Siegel. Ted Siegel starts investing a lot more money into this team, bringing in better players like Artur, like Hector Herrera, bringing in Pat Onstead as the sporting director. Not only with the Houston Dynamo but also with the Houston Dash. So you invest money in that team, you bring in better players, and look where the Dynamo are at right now. From a team that could barely even make it to the playoffs, now you're, like you said, now they're playing decently there. Now you're looking at third place, hopefully, in the Western Conference. But at the end of the day, investment has to happen to bring in good players that'll carry you this. Like, I'm not telling you bring in one superstar, like bring in Cristiano Ronaldo and have a bunch of college players around him, and only Cristiano Ronaldo is going to carry this team. No, bring in a good bolstered squad. Spread that investment. I don't want to say evenly, but spread it around enough so you can have a decent foundation to build upon of good players, and that's where the investment comes in. And if even with that team, Wilmer Cabrera fails to bring in results, then okay, we can start thinking of, what, Wilmer's got to go, and we got to bring in a better coach. But at the end of the day, it all starts. You give the coach a good foundation of good players that will be good enough to carry you this team deep into the playoffs at least. So JVO says, as a fan, I have high expectations. Season ticket holder and support the team. I would change directions, just my take. I understand the financial situation, but we deserve better. I agree. I think the fans deserve better. I think how can I word this? I don't think that's up for discussion with anybody here that watches the Down in the Valley podcast.
We deserve better. Yes, we deserve better.
I do agree that this fan base deserves better, but let's be honest. This is also. This is a circle. This is just a circle. The team doesn't do good. They have terrible results. The fans don't go. The fans don't go. There's not enough income to sustain this team. It's just a vicious cycle. I don't know where it begins, but at the end of the day, somebody has to put in the money to be able to build in the squad, and then the fans have to show up. And what does that take? That takes also another investment in marketing. I mean, let's be honest. There are so many people in the RGV that still don't know that the Toros even exist.
It's true.
And what does it say? So
they know that San Antonio exists. I've met some fans that know who San Antonio are, but didn't know that we had a team.
Yeah,
it's true.
So that's why I was kind of like, marketing, like our marketing isn't like, the savior of it all.
No,
there is a lot of improvement that needs to be made. And I agree with that, JVO, that,
Yeah, no one was in disagreement with this. Now on to this. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to talk to Josh here for a second, Edson, because he's trying to tear me down very quickly. Just destroying me with also wonder why Caleb Porter didn't return. Yeah, I know exactly why Caleb Porter didn't return. I think we all know why he didn't return. And that there's kind of two reasons for that. They were in the midst of that whole freaking situation with the Thorns and the Timbers. If I'm not mistaken, that was around that time. Then he roots for the Portland Timbers, but also the Jets. I know the football team for the Jets. I became a fan of them in 2010 and 11. I don't know if you know, but 2 AFC championship appearances. One time eliminating the Patriots in the wild card round, just FYI
I
fun
don't
little
want to talk
thing.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah. You might not want to talk about Sunday after Sunday. Um, too.
Look, we've already had it
This
hard
is gonna
enough
be
as it
fun.
is, man. Don't make it worse for me.
Oh, come on. Be quiet. Your sixth championship winning team.
I mean, yes,
Be quiet. You haven't had it. You have had it hard enough as it is. Be quiet. Come
for
on. You
this
can't.
season. I
You
mean, when
can't
we
talk.
know
You
we know we're
can't
still
talk.
rebuilding. We know we're still
You can.
rebuilding.
Whatever, Edson.
We
Whatever,
can't live
Edson.
from the past, bro. We cannot just live on the glories of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Man. We
Oh, it's
got
one bad season. Calm down. We've had
it is
thousands
not
of
one
those.
bad team, but we are completely going on a
Blame
completely
Yogi
different
Bear
tack.
Gaming. Blame him.
Thank you, Josh. Way to go, Josh. Okay, serious question from JVO, and I think we've this has been a crazy episode to say the least. But anyway, all right. He says, please answer this. If the financial situation doesn't change, would you keep Wilmer long term, both as coach and sporting director? Please be honest. My answer, no, because it's not going to be financially feasible to have him with such a high salary when the team is struggling to is strapped for cash.
Yes.
So it's not going to be because of results. It's going to be more of like, okay, we're paying you a lot of money and we really need and if RGV FC's ownership thinks that they need to save money,
yeah,
they're going to start cutting. They're going to start cutting.
Yeah, and guess who's most likely going to be? And guess who's most likely going to be back at head coach too? His assistant,
Jerson.
If I had to guess, it's going to be Jerson as head coach if at all happens that way, which is true. What I think will happen as well, because he's coming up on season 5.
4. Next year is going to be 4.
Next year's going to wow.
Yeah, because he came in 21.
Yeah,
so 21, 22, 23.
Buy out his contract either. They're going to start renegotiating, if anything, where he's definitely, like I said before, he's probably going to have a salary cut, a pay cut at the end of next year if he's willing to come back for the following year after that too. So it's a whole thing. Yeah, why not make a change now? That because it's going to be too expensive, JVO, to buy out his contract. That's the thing. It's going to be too expensive. Yes, again, yeah, it's just going to be too expensive to buy out his contract. That's really where it's going down to if he misses the playoffs the next year too. But will our owner decide to do it? I don't know.
Well, this is okay. So this is let me summarize this, Jacob. Okay. This was the problem from the beginning of independence. Ron Patel had ambitious goals for this team.
Yeah.
He was the one that listened to the fans, and he received from feedback that the fans wanted to distance themselves from the Houston Dynamo.
Yeah.
So he goes in, negotiates the relationship. We become an independent team in the last year of the contract of the relationship, the Dynamo RGV relationship. Okay.
Yep.
He brings in Wilmer Cabrera as head coach. Mm-hmm. He brings in, Vicente Sanchez, Rodrigo Lopez. He starts bringing all of these players, to build a good competitive roster for independence. But what happens is that Ron Patel leaves and he doesn't get replaced.
Yep.
So Ron Patel and people underneath him had ambitious goals for RGV.
It's true. Once
he leaves, there really wasn't somebody that was as public as he was that showed, that ambition. And so what happened is just kept cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting.
Yeah.
So there's the difference in, I think, in my opinion, the difference in ambitions from people within the front office. Mm-hmm. The cost is right now where now we don't have the ambitious player or the ambitious leader in the team, in the front office. And so now it's just business as usual. That's why it just keeps cutting back and cutting back and cutting back.
Yeah, and I almost
Yeah, his
completely forgot about that whole freaking situation too, because also the way that he left as well was not necessarily great for the club. Meaning he left out of the blue. Like some of the front office didn't even know that it was going to be his last day. And then he announces it's my last day and then leaves. And so that was very difficult for RGV FC as well to come back from
Mhm.
too. It was a very weird situation in that whole thing. Um, and like we said, we haven't gotten somebody like him to really try to bring this club back to where it was in 2021 and trying to push, because I'm sure he had a great idea and was probably really good with the owner too to try to get the money to pay the players. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, no, we don't need to spend this much money on this team. Let's cut and cut and cut. It's very much could have been, the situation, the talks. Of course, we are not in this room. We are not in that room with the talks of how
If we could
much,
be a fly
what the
on that
budget,
wall,
yeah, of what the budget talks at the start of the seasons were and all that. It's so true.
hey, it's up to
Put it
you,
back in
man. It's up
perspective.
to
Yeah.
you. Like we can't
Mhm.
we can't tell you what you can or cannot do with your money. I mean, if you
Exactly.
think if you I honestly think like you're free to do with your money as you please. If you think that
Mhm.
you're not getting your value as a season ticket member, I mean, that I can't control your money. And I mean, I could say, oh no, keep buying season tickets, but at the end of the day, you worked hard for
Yeah.
your money.
Hey,
And if
we
you don't
don't.
see value out of it, you have all the freedom in the world to say, you know what, I'm not going to renew my tickets.
Yep.
And
We don't
we're
work
going
for
to
this
respect.
club. Mhm.
And we were going to respect that decision. I mean,
Mhm.
I've cut back on on a lot of stuff on soccer too. Like even for the toros, I've
Yep.
focused a lot more and you've seen it this year. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Why have I been very inconsistent this season to bring the podcast? Because I've honestly kind of been like, man, it's like I'm putting too much of my time and effort
Mhm.
on a team that it's just at the end
Yeah.
of the day they do what they're going to do. They do what they want.
Yeah. This could become a
And why
racing
am I
podcast in the end too. So
if-
watch
you
out.
know and so, hey, you see, you say that jokingly, it could happen.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's like my focus has now turned into NASCAR, but as a fan, not as a podcaster or anything like that,
Mhm.
because like NASCAR brought me some of that happiness that I've kind of lost in the sport of soccer from being
Mhm.
press conferences and all of that.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying, and like you said, like for you, you want to cut back on the season ticket membership.
Mhm.
That's fine. I've cut back on the effort that on the amount of times that I do a podcast.
Yep.
Before I would be like, I might not be feeling well to do a podcast, and I'd still do it anyway, because I had the passion for the team. Now it's
Mhm.
like, look, I got to look out for myself,
It's true.
for my mental being and all of that. At the end of the day, soccer is the most important thing of the least important thing. It cannot take over your financial health, your mental health, or anything like that. So if you feel that you're putting in too much money on this team and that it's affecting you financially, go ahead and do what you got to do.
Real quick update. Whoever FC Dallas, Real Salt Lake won. FC Dallas, aka FC Frisco, nil. That puts the Portland Timbers in 9th position, and they have not even kicked off yet. There you go, Josh.
You want a
We're
cookie?
in playoffs now.
You want a cookie?
Actually, I do. That actually sounds pretty good.
Anyway, so at the end of the day, RGV wins with the minimum against Birmingham Legion 1-0. I mean, what are some of the things that we can get out of this? That's
Great
what I'm
defense.
trying. That's what I'm trying, Jake Abraham. Yes, but the thing about it is, Jacob, is why can't our defense be consistently good week in and week out? That's the problem.
Oh,
I mean, because we
so
said, remember the San Antonio game?
Mhm.
Wilmer himself said this team has to play. This defense has to be as consistently as well as they played against San Antonio. We have to play it against the next team and the next team until the end of the season.
Yep.
What happens? The next game they crap the bed, against Phoenix and make dumb mistakes. They fix it, but by the end it was already too late. So now you come back and against Birmingham, you play a decent game for on most of the match. Well, at the beginning, it was a little bit shaky, but you were kind of lucky that you were able to keep the clean sheet. But another observation that so there's that. So obviously the defense played better, but the question is, can they play as well as they did against Birmingham? Can they repeat it against Indy 11 at Indy, against Colorado Springs in the elevation of Colorado, against Hartford Athletic, against Sacramento Republic at home, and against Loudoun United at home? That's the biggest thing.
Yep. I mean, that's a question that can only be answered by the players. We can talk all we want to about this, and I don't know. I don't know if they can. They haven't shown anything from the team right now that has shown consistency. Started with that AB. Okay, but yeah, no, it's so true though. It's like, can we be consistent? Can this team be very consistent in the whole thing? The defense hasn't given us anything to say yes, really. They have to if they want to play postseason soccer, but they haven't right now.
Quick
Monterey up
updates.
1-0. Cool.
Yeah, Monterey Bay up 1-0. That is not a good sign.
No, it is not.
Okay. AB says, was Frank's goal a lucky shot? Thoughts? I think we discussed it before JVO came in.
Yes,
yes, it was.
Yes.
It was kind of
because it looked more like an own goal than an actual goal from Lopez.
Yes. Obviously, the goal was credited to Lopez, but if you look at the replay, it was deflected. He was going for the far post. Number 3 from Birmingham Legion, who was Cavita, was the one that deflected that ball, like almost immediately after Frank shot it into the back of the net, in the near post. That's why it looks at normal speed. It looks like it was the Frank Lopez. The original intent was the near post. No, his intent was the far post, and it just got deflected immediately by Cavita into the near post. So you could say it was lucky, but a lot of the times, like I mentioned before, you gotta build that luck. You gotta put yourself in the situation for you to attract that good luck that'll put the ball into the back of the net. At this point, and I was telling the guys at the Stampede on Sunday, at this point, it's not about, our focus shouldn't be whether we play beautiful soccer or ugly soccer. At this point, all we care about is we got to score more goals than the opposing team.
Yeah, that's all that we can really think about, is scoring more goals than the opposing team. And it's true. And again, I'd want to answer that question, but no, I will not. And also no. But either way, it's just, this team has to be as consistent as they can be for the next 2 matches that will be on the road. I mean, traveling to Indy to play Indy 11, potentially inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. It's still, it's going to be, it's going to be tough. This team is not easy in the slightest. Indy 11, they find themselves in 6th position in the Eastern Conference, which looks a bit better than the West. But then again, at the same time, I mean, every team is beating up on every other team in the Western Conference. I mean, we talk about it right now. Monterey up 1-0 against San Diego Loyal. That kind of messes with us, kind of doesn't. But either way, it goes back to the same point of just, you need the 3 points on the road, and it's going to be very difficult, and this team has to play very consistently. But once again, they have not given us anything thought of that they can do that back-to-back games. And back-to-back-to-back games would be even tougher.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, that if there's one of the things that the technical staff will have to evaluate during this offseason, you gotta try to build a defensive line that is more consistent. Like it doesn't do us any good to have a team that plays good for one game and plays terrible for 2-3 games, right? And you saw it this season. Where does it have that right? Where does it have this team right now? 11th place. We need to be more consistent. And if we want to replicate,
Last year even.
with a budget team, but if we want to replicate the San Antonios, the Louisville Cities, the Tampa Bay Rowdies without the big bucks, you got to be consistent. You got to. This team has shown glimpses that they can take on anybody in the USL, but it does us no good that we can beat San Diego at their home, equalize against Sacramento Republic at their home, and then lose to Las Vegas Lights.
Yeah,
it does us no good. So, okay, let me see. So that was now another observation that I saw. Cristiano Francois. Mm-hmm. Cristiano Francois is a super sub.
Yep. Was supposed to be a starter, funny enough.
So, which takes us to Kema no Kema in a little because that was one of the topics that I had. Because he did talk in the press conference about Cristiano Francois' super sub role against Birmingham. And he says, we need that type of internal competition. Alex Moniz came into the role of a starter. We wanted to play him as, Moniz. We wanted to give him some minutes to give him confidence to see what he can help us with. Cristiano had to wait, but he's a guy who no matter what, if he starts or if he's coming from the bench, he's going to give you everything. No. The thing we need to focus on, we need that type of internal competition. Because it really felt, at least to me, that being benched by Alex Moniz kind of lit a fire in Cristiano Francois. Yeah. How many times in the last couple of weeks have the people in the chat, have me and Ray said, Cristiano Francois can't finish, Cristiano Francois can't dribble, Cristiano Francois falls by himself, can't find balance, when he's dribbling. And against Birmingham, you could say that, okay, well, the defensive line was tired. But maybe that's what he needs to be. Maybe his characteristics are more to go up and take advantage of tired defenses. Mm-hmm. I still think he can't finish. I still think, all of that. I think it's beating a dead horse how I really don't like Cristiano Francois. But he generated a lot more on the offense against Birmingham.
Yeah. Yeah. And if he was in that position to start, then and had competition, then would this be a different guy? Probably. We'd probably see this man all of a sudden be able to finish when he would potentially start games, because he beat his opponent. Basically, he beat his rival on his own team. Basically, he beat his competition, is what I'm saying. So there's a possibility that if he had that type of, and this is of course just seeing what it could have been, but if he had that possibility to fight against another player to start for his spot, then we could have seen a different Cristiano Francois, a better Cristiano Francois in a sense. But yes, of course, he still had a lot to grow. But he could.
But then again, you also bring in the question: why does it take to have somebody? Why does it take somebody lighting a fire under you to get the best out of you?
Because Cristiano Francois. What's his age? Because I don't know it off the top of my head. Cristiano Francois. His Francois. His age. Here's really the answer. He's 30 years old. Mm-hmm. So he's played with clubs before. So he knows that if there's no one behind me, I'm going to be starting every match until it won't matter how I do. I'm still getting paid. That's the thing. It's the mentality of the player to begin with. I'm getting that check, I'm cashing it, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here to do a job. And if it's mediocre, oh well, I don't have any competition to take that away from me. So that's where it can come from, for sure. If you don't have anybody there, and if you've already experienced
So
that
you
type of
fall
stuff,
into a comfort zone.
exactly. That's where it gets tough. You fall into that comfort zone. And then every single player, if they're like that, that's going to happen. It has.
Bring up a good point, honestly.
We saw it with a couple of other players too behind. We even went back in the original Houston Dynamo days, even before Houston Dynamo were FC. It, it was with man, what's his face? He wasn't the one that got kicked off the team for drinking. No, but he had an attitude. It was he was our top goal scorer for a bit. But the point is, once somebody ended up starting, he got benched. It lit a fire in him, and we saw a different type of player too.
Mhm.
So it is that comfort zone for sure. Who hired that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we understand JVO. Please stop.
We get the point. You hate Wilmer
Mhm.
Cabrera.
Yep.
Did he pee on your Cheerios
Then
or what?
yeah, then are you really a fan? I'll bring up this for you, JVO. Then are you really a fan of this team, or do you just want to keep hating? Don't spend your money for this club then, because we all know this club is not going to make a change. So stop. Then stop going to the games. It's
Well,
fine.
I
We
like.
don't
Okay,
necessarily.
I get the point. Wilmer Cabrera isn't the best, but the fact of the matter is, like, he always wants to bring the conversation of the topic back to Wilmer Cabrera. Like, dude, we're talking about
Yeah.
the players and themselves. We're talking about different things, different. But if you're just all you care about is, for us to all of a sudden start bashing Wilmer Cabrera, like this is not the show for you. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. We're gonna be looking at every little piece of what we can analyze with the players and all of that. We're not gonna go on the easy route of Wilmer out, yada 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 yada.
All right. See ya. But either way, yeah, it's interesting to see how the attacking has played out this season, and for Francois being a pretty big signing to begin with, if I do recall, he was a pretty big signing, right? Yeah,
Big signing,
quote unquote big signing.
quote
Um,
unquote big signing because
yeah,
he was terrible at El Paso. He was terrible. I forgot where else. His only good year was in the Miami FC.
hmm yeah. No, yeah. So there we go. He had been on clubs and hadn't been that successful, but he could have been that. It feels like with you bringing up all of his clubs, right?
Mhm.
He could have been this amazing talent, but he kind of did it to himself. This was his chance to regroup and get better. But either way, it just came up, and all of a sudden, I don't know. He could have been a better. Yeah, he still can't finish. It's true. Could have been a better player. I think he kind of just missed his opportunity to get better while he was younger. But th- this is in the end a league where you're going to potentially find gems. And we thought that this potentially could be a gem. He still can't finish. It's true. But if he comes off the bench and has that type of performance
But
where
come
he
on,
can
let's be
score
let's be
goals, we'll
honest. If
see.
you're like
We'll see.
at 30 years old, would
Yeah,
you
you
already
either have it
develop?
or you don't. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
true.
if this was a 17-year-old, like in the case of Wilmer Jr.
Wilmer Jr. Exactly. He showed back up and he was freaking great. Once he got reacclimated with U.S. soccer in USL, it's very
Hmm.
very true. So, yeah, and a younger talent, and that's where you will see younger players coming from college, and you can kind of already tell what RGVFC's thought process is for that season, I guess, or for the season and for the future of this club. If you're going to go for younger players, you want to build that team up. You want to build those players up, potentially sell them, get that money for that business. That's of course what this season was not. As we get back to it, so just bah.
So, another observation that I got. I think Robert Coronado, he bounced back really well. Wilmer did mention in Spanish that Robert Coronado lost his spot in the starting position because of his terrible performance against San Antonio. I talked about it in after that game. Talked about it in the show after that game where I said Robert Coronado was very passive in that match, and that was probably going to cost him a spot, and it did. In this game, he came out better. He had a lot of key passes, especially when Juan Galindres came. Unfortunately, Juan Galindres just, I don't know, he had some one-on-ones that he wasn't able to capitalize. And we just keep coming back to the point with Juan Galindres that, and while he was out, he made the claims that he was the savior of this team, that the goals were in Colombia. He's got to do a better job proving his point, because right now, I think he's missed more opportunities than he has actually scored. He brings something different to the table, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, you're a striker. You get paid to put those goals in the back of the net. Obviously, Van Okel obviously is going to have, as a goalkeeper, you're going to try and do your best to avoid those opportunities. But if you're the clinical striker you say you are, those are the times where you need to show it, right? So hopefully he gets to that level of what we showed at USL League One with the Chattanooga Red Wolves.
Yep, 100% agree. He's got 5 more games to show it. Everyone does on the whole entire team. It's not just him, but everyone needs to buy in now. And needs to be, again, we go back to consistency will be key for this road trip, and depth and younger players stepping up will be the biggest thing. And once this younger team, who will probably play if we have a Wednesday match, a couple of players step up and make a difference, guess what? They might be starters the next time around. So it's all about chances for players to get better in these next 5 matches to show that they have what it takes. Every single game is going to be literally a playoff match and a championship match for this team.
So Monterey Bay up 2-0 on San Diego Loyal. Sacramento Republic and New Mexico United tied 0-0.
Yeah.
So far.
It's interesting, real quick, just talking about play for the playoffs with RGVFC at 35. Still, they can climb up if everything were to go their way. And Colorado Springs and Oakland Roots and El Paso and New Mexico were to lose. And potentially, if New Mexico gets scored on instead of draw 0-0, then all of a sudden this team can, still climb up to 7th, is my point, with just wins. And Monterey Bay, basically, they're fighting for themselves, and they'd be in 5th and have a hosting spot instead of San Diego Loyal. So that's something to just keep an eye on. And that really doesn't affect RGVFC too much, because they would still be in 7th, potentially, if everything were to go right. So, again, just they have to win out.
So real quick, because I think we're about to go into 2 hours, and
fun.
That's usually the limit that I have. Like, my throat is already getting dry. I'm fighting a throat infection as well, so I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, final thoughts on this game before we give our predictions to the game against Indy.
Final thoughts on this game. RGVFC gets 3 points. That's all you can ask for in the end. No matter how you win it, you win the game, and that's a plus.
I
I,
I really hope it didn't have to be like this, but that's the situation we're at right now, and all that matters is you got to get the 3 points no matter what. Um, let's see. I think for me, I was pleasantly surprised, obviously, that we were able to get that 1-0 victory over Birmingham Legion. I was very pleased by Michael Knapp. I was very pleased by Robert Coronado when he came in. I was super pleased that Juan David Cabeza is a center back as well. That definitely surprised me because I think he saved us a lot of times. I was looking at the stats just real quick for the player defensively, and Juan David Cabezas compared to the rest of the defensive line. So Cano Darce, Benitez, Ricketts, and Juan David Cabezas. So defensively, Juan David Cabezas had 5 clearances and 2 interceptions. Jonathan Ricketts had 1 clearance and 5 interceptions. So we go back with the fact that Jonathan Ricketts continues to be a really good player out on that left side of the defense. Gabriel Benitez had 3 clearances and 1 interception. Frank Nodarce 3 clearances and 0 interceptions. So, but yeah, Juan Cabezas was very, very key to getting those balls out of the area. So I was pleasantly surprised seeing him as a defender instead of a center defensive midfielder. Um, excuse me. So I don't know if that is going to continue for the rest of the season. We don't know. I don't know exactly what's going on with Eric Pimentel. Nothing has been said. If it's an injury, we know he's not. It's not a suspension. So um, we don't know what it is, and I guess this kind of shows that Wilmer Cabrera really isn't that keen on Eric Kinsener. Maybe he thinks he's still too green, to be on a defensive line with no leadership. We talked about it. We talked about it in the game against San Antonio. When you got Frank Nodarce and Eric Kinsener as your center back pairing, none of those two have leadership qualities like Juan David Cabezas or Eric Pimentel or even Wahabakwe. So it's a lot more difficult, to keep organization in that line. So if you got to put in Juan David Cabezas and as a center back, and he was able to adapt, well, it brought good results at least against Birmingham. The question is, and we'll go back to it, can they continue this performance against the rest of the 5 games in the season? So, um, so now let's go real quick to our predictions against Indy. So we do know that Indy 11 right now has 42 points under Mark Lowry, former El Paso Locomotive head coach. They really have gotten some really good players. I know they have Dispe, a former Toro defender. They have Salomon Asante. They have I want to. Do they have Kembo Kibatu? I'm not 100% sure, but they have good players in that squad. Now, here's the good thing. Despite how well Indy 11 is, if you look at the table, most of the results have been away. At home, they have been terrible. They've only have 4 wins at home.
Yeah, we'll see how they do tonight too.
That is correct as well. Right now they are. Where are you? 0-0. They're still 0-0 against Phoenix Rising on the road. It's only the 80th minute.
Did they hire Kyle? Indy 11?
Kyle who?
What? Kyle Adams.
That's yes, they did as well. No, Louisville. That's Louisville.
Oh, that's Louisville. Gotcha.
Yeah. No, they have former Toros. They have Jesus Vasquez. Remember that center back from last year? Mm-hmm. They have Dispe. They have.
Oh, they have Fuenmayor. Oh no, that's
Phoenix. Those are the only two. So those are the only 2 former Toros. But you're talking about they also have players like Brian Revelon from who came from El Paso, used to be under Mark Lowry, so that's why he took him. Adon Quinn, Cameron Lindley, Solomon Asante, Sebastian Guinzotti, Machak Jerome, Callum Chapman Page. So they have a good squad on paper. Like I said, we need to take advantage of the fact that they're not doing so well at home. But it's going to take RGV to play as well as they did, like they did against San Antonio, like they did against Birmingham, like they did against, I'm beating a dead horse here. Mm-hmm. Can they do it? That is a very different question.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's going to be one of those games. It's just this team has to step up. And that's really all I can say about this game, too. It was just RGV FC need to show up. My prediction for this game, I think they just get a draw. A 2-2 draw in the end. It's just tough to see anything really else happening because of RGV FC's form on the road, too, has not been successful. Too much, to be exact. They've won some games, but it's just tough to see back to back.
Yeah, that's the thing. Dispe and Vasquez, they know Wilmer Cabrera, so that is going to be crucial for Indy 11 to be able to know maybe what Wilmer Cabrera has on the table. Now they are playing differently compared to when Dispe was with the team.
Back,
yeah, if like you see a lot of more variation this year. We've played with 5 in the back, we've played with 4 in the back, and stuff like that. So they're not 100%, but they know the general tendencies of what Wilmer Cabrera wants for this team. High pressure. We know that's a given. We know that's a given that the RGV likes to play with the high pressure. RGV doesn't like the possession. They struggle when they have more possession. All of those things like that, Dispe and Vasquez are going to know that, and they're going to relay that to Mark Lowry. How is Indy 11 going to adapt? Another different thing. If I'm not mistaken, they play at Lucas Oil Stadium, which is artificial turf.
Yep. They at least play some games there. They might play sometimes outside, but I believe it is maybe fully indoors.
They play at the Michael Carroll Track and Soccer Stadium, Indianapolis, Indiana. So
yeah, so
I don't know 100%.
Games,
yeah, so I don't know exactly if that is natural grass or artificial turf. But I know that in Lucas, when they do play at Lucas Oil Stadium, it is artificial turf, which I doubt they are because the NFL season has already began.
Yeah, exactly. That would be tough. Let's see images of the stadium real quick, it's showing their future stadium potentially. Yeah, Sunday 11 thinking about getting that future stadium.
It's turf. So racist, it's turf.
Mm-hmm, just looked at it. Couldn't be any more artificial from that photo.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go with a draw as well. I think it's either a draw. It's gonna be a draw or a loss.
Yeah.
Why? Because I don't trust this defense to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
If they can if they can play consistently well, close up the spaces and all of that. So JVO asks, you guys were talking about an inconsistent defensive line. Why would we get rid of 2 really good center backs like Dispe and Vasquez? Thoughts? Okay, Vasquez was to bring in Jonas Fjellberg from Indy 11.
Yeah. And then we couldn't get Fjellberg this year.
Yeah, at first it was a trade. It was a trade for, I think it was a loan. It was like they switched loans, right? So RGV loaned Vasquez to Indy 11, and in return, Indy loaned Fjellberg to us. And then what happened was that Vasquez showed up with Indy 11 under Mark Lowry. So Indy 11 ended up buying, or actually they got him for free because I think remember at that time RGB only did 1 year loans.
Yes.
Or 1 year contracts. So his contract ran out with RGV while he was still on loan, and so Indy 11, offered him a contract, and so he ended up staying with Indy 11, and we got nothing in return because Jonas Fjellberg had to be recalled from the loan to Indy 11, and eventually ended up getting sold over to Colorado Springs Switchbacks now.
Very true.
But the problem is that it all goes back with money. We could have easily. I feel like we could have gotten Jonas. Jonas Spielberg was a great player, but we didn't have the money to keep him. Same thing with Dispe. Dispe, as far as I'm concerned, they didn't have enough money to offer him a contract to keep him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why and that's why I was always harping in that off season. Why do we have to rely on 1 year? Why are we always doing just 1 year contracts? Why can't we do multi-year contracts? We're starting to see some more. And I think that was an issue with the USL in general, but it was just more on RGV because obviously when you've got 1 year contract, you're just inviting all, especially if they play well, like Dispe, you're just inviting all of these bigger teams to come in, hey, and start talking to the player. Hey, you know what? How much are they offering you at RGV? You know what?
Mm-hmm.
We'll pay you this much more. And from what I heard, Dispe was waiting for a counter offer by RGV. It never came. So he ended up going first with Tulsa, and then from there he was transferred to Indy 11, where he's at right now. Because I think it was this season where Dispe went from Tulsa to Indy 11. Yeah. So Ray says Dispe was about the money. And then he adds, now there's a CBA, so now there has to be a club and or player. Explain that real quick, Ray. Oh, an option.
Player option. There you go. That makes complete sense. So there has to be a player option, and there has to be club part. I'm kind of confused on, but for sure the player option I completely get.
Mm-hmm.
I guess wherever you end up landing.
Yeah, so that has been the issue why we've lost a lot of good players. Because remember we had Kyle Murphy back in the Dynamo days.
Mm-hmm.
We had Connor Donovan, Kyle Adams, who's now at Louisville City. What's the name of that outside back that we Carter Manley? Yeah. We had Carter Manley, and now he is with San Antonio FC. So we had a lot of players that we ended up letting go in the Dynamo years is because of Mr. Core Values himself, Matt Jordan, who had this idea of like every player that we have in RGV has to be, for the Dynamo, and if they're not for the Dynamo, then after 3 years or 2 or 3 years, we have to let them go. Doesn't matter if they're great in the USL, but we can't keep them in the system. So we lost a lot of good players like that. Now that we're independent, it's a whole issue of every other team is going to be, if they're good, they're going to have a lot more deeper pockets to offer them higher salaries, which I don't blame them, because at the end of the day, a soccer player's career is really, really short, and you got to look out for you and your family financially. So you're not going to stay on a team just because, I have passion for this club. No. At the end of the day, passion and amor, pasión y aguante, like they say in Spanish, is not going to pay the bills. It's not going to assure your family's future. It's salary. So if Louisville comes in, you're not going to say no to Louisville coming in and offering you, let's say, double. I know I'm exaggerating, but the double your salary here at RGV. Let's be honest. And that player would be dumb to turn down an offer like that. Bringing up Matt Jordan. I know, Josh, that is a dirty word, but I just had to do it. Let's see. Abraham says, completely random. What do you guys think is the intent behind the current social media push the Toros are making, the No on the Go and the Generación series? Basically getting the fans to know the players more outside the pitch. That's basically it. We talked about in previous years that, because I know I talked to players, off the record, and they would make comments of like, man, I'm out on the streets, at groceries or, stuff like that. And it's like, nobody knows who I am. Like nobody goes up to me and like, oh, you're Chuy Enriquez or, whatever X name, or you're, Connor Donovan. Can I have your autograph kind of thing, and that was because their marketing didn't really push for the community to know who these players were. with these ideas of having them, doing these kind of activities like No on the Go and Generacion series, that's the intent. I see. I see it's getting the fans to know the players more outside of them being soccer players. Making all these fun little activities, knowing their history. In the case of Generacion series, knowing their story, of how they got to being signed by RGV. In the case of Durio Herrera, being at RGV and now playing at the University of Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if
Yep.
I'm wrong. So how did he get to the point? I know I did an interview as well. Well, it has nothing to do with the Toros, but the idea of the striker, of having that interview with Javi Garcia, was exactly that as well. Knowing the background of Javi, how he got there, the struggles that he had in high school, the struggles that he had, trying to find a team in Liga MX that would give him an opportunity, and how he ended up having to go back with UTRGV, not having any minutes with UTRGV, and somehow, getting an opportunity with RGV, because when both Tyler Derrick and Colin Miller had injuries they ended up having to sign a third keeper, which was Javi Garcia, and how he took advantage of those opportunities. Unfortunately, he hasn't had opportunities with Apaso Locomotive, but it is what it is. But to me, that's the idea behind those kind of social media pushes.
Yeah, 1,000%. That will be interesting. Yeah, I guess I'll start my bold prediction since Michael gave his 3-0. I'll give it to you even bolder. RGV FC win. Score of 5-0. Red card awarded to, let's say the keeper. Yeah, red card awarded to the keeper for tripping a player inside the box, and that's how we scored the opener. And then 5-0 because we just torched their defense because they have a backup goalkeeper that is not too tall.
Bold prediction, 2-0. 2-0 win.
That's also very bold.
Yeah. And both of the goals are going to be scored by Cristiano Francois. But guys, that's going to be it for tonight. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to thank you all for your comments, your hot takes, and all of that. We appreciate all of your interaction, but it is getting very late. It is already past 10 o'clock, and I've got to get some sleep because tomorrow I got to go back to the gym at 5 in the morning. But thank you all for your support. Like I said, happy birthday to Ray, and welcome back, Jacob. Any final thoughts before we go?
Final thoughts before we go.
Jacob, Josh, I don't know how to rate. I'm using Restream. I'm sorry.
Final thoughts. This is gonna even be out of it. Be respectful to the players, even if they're doing terrible. And be respectful to the team. Don't just completely hate on them for no reason. Because athletes are still people too, as well as coaches are still people too. That's going to be my final thoughts on this whole entire night. But yeah, find me on Twitter, Jacob Young 456.
My final thoughts: Danica Patrick needs to learn some humanity. That's all I'm going to say.
I like that.
But with that, guys, I'm going to let y'all go. Y'all have a good night, and we'll see each other next week for another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. By the way, give my good friend, the Yogi Bear Gaming, Josh, give him a follow on Twitch for all of his gaming content. And with that, I will let you go, and have a good night.